right, are we ready to begin? Can you have your seats, please? We have a motion to adjourn already. You want to do that? All right, I'd like to call order here. I'd like to welcome you to Litchfield's school deliberative session. My name is John Regan. I live at 9 Chaseburg Circle with my wife Patricia, who you met out front. My son Daniel as well. Daniel is assisting Vice Moderator Reed and I this year and helping to put together the election stuff. So, a few administrative announcements. State law prohibits smoking anywhere on school grounds. Please do not light up. Restrooms are located just out past the auditorium on your right. Concession, we don't have that. As a reminder, it's against school policy to leave flyers on vehicles parked on school property. Let's see. So, before we begin this meeting, please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Bork up to introduce his board.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out.
Switch.
Good morning. I'll just go right across the board and introduce who's up here. Michelle Flynn, Secretary for School Board. Diane Garreau, our legal representative. Superintendent Jim O'Neill. Vice Chair Tina Harrison. Derek Barker. Corey Isbicki, BA. Liz McDonald, and John York.
Thank you, sir. And could I invite Ms. Couture to come up to invite her board?
Good morning, thank you. My name is Cindy Couture. I have Carrie Douglas, who is Vice Chair, Jim Spots, Dennis Miller, Jen Bork, Bob Keating. John Brunell could not be with us today, and Tina Harrison is the school board's rep to the budget committee. We do have a vacant position that happened in November, and we felt that far into the budget it was wise not to fill it, so we did have a vacancy.
Thank you. We have a little adjustment. I handed out, or in your handout, is the list of moderators' rules. I read a lot of rules every day, don't I? Maybe someday I won't have to, but for tonight we will. So the agenda tonight, I'll go through the rules, we'll read the warrants, we'll discuss the warrants, we'll entertain adjustments or amendments to the warrants, and if you vote to do so, we'll change the warrants, and then we'll close the meeting. Okay, so Litchfield is operating under what is known as Senate Bill Number 2 procedures. This means that our function this evening is to review and discuss the warrant articles that have been presented here today and for us to vote on by official ballot on Election Day. Election Day will be on Tuesday, March 13th. Polls at Campbell High School here will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., not 8 p.m., 7 p.m. According to state law, town and school district meetings are run by the moderator's rules. This means that the moderator sets the ground rules for the meeting. However, law also allows you to overhaul the moderator's ruling by approving a motion to do so by simple majority vote. For this deliberative session, the moderator will read each warrant article and recognize the sponsor to speak about it. Then the moderator will open the floor for discussion. When you come to ask questions or discuss an article at any microphone here today in front, please clearly state your name and street address so that Michelle, our clerk, can hear you. If a voter wishes to propose an amendment to an article, he or she must have the amendment moved and seconded before it can be discussed. If we make no amendments on these warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as you see them today. If we do make amendments to these warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as amended. Amendments to warrant articles must be handed to the moderator in writing. Index cards are here in the front with pens if you need them. Note that an amendment cannot change the primary subject described in the article. The maker of a motion to amend an article will have the first opportunity to speak to it. Each proposed amendment will be brought to closure before any other amendment is discussed. At this auditorium, non-voters may sit in the right corner. Can I have hands of all the non-residents in town? Okay. Are you guys all part of the school? They're all part of the staff. Okay. So you voters out there, you residents out there, keep an eye on these guys when it comes to saying aye and raising your hands. Okay? I'm going to basically not count anybody in this section or in that far corner. Okay? If you're a resident in this, any residents right here? Oh, God, you guys are confusing the hell out of me. All right, we'll get there if it comes to that, all right? All right. As you enter the building tonight, the ballot clerks of each registered voters, we're given a registered voter yes-no sheet. You have pink ones tonight. These are yours to use for secret ballots. Please do not drop them on the floor or leave them behind if you leave before the close of the meeting. Only those people who are on the checklist as qualified voters are permitted to vote to amend an article. If the moderator receives a complaint or notices a non-voter voting, then he will require the non-voter to leave. Previously discussed. The moderator must conduct a secret yes-no ballot when 5 voters have a written request prior to a voice, hand, standing, or division vote on the article. The moderator must conduct a secret yes-no ballot when 7 or more voters challenge any vote to amend an article immediately after the vote is declared by the moderator and before any other business is begun. Approval of all warrant articles amendments at the deliberative session shall be by simple majority vote. A voice vote will be a primary method of voting. If the moderator cannot distinguish a clear majority with a voice vote, then a vote by hands will be taken. Active campaigning for your favorite warrant article handouts standing with signs is allowed in the hall outside the auditorium. Active campaigning within the auditorium other than to discuss an article when invited to do so is prohibited. The deliberative session is a forum at which we ask questions. More importantly, it's a place for debate. Proper respect and decorum will be expected at all times. Every effort will be made to give recognition to all wishing to speak. If you want to speak, then you must come to the microphone to do so. Board members, if you're speaking as a board member discussing an article, you may remain on stage. If you're offering your opinion as a citizen, then please move to the floor microphones. All those who speak are to keep their remarks pertinent to the motion. No negative motions, no personal attacks, no profanity will be permitted. All speakers will direct their remarks to the moderator. When a question is asked, the moderator will call upon the appropriate person to respond to the question. The moderator will allow one follow-up question when others are waiting to speak and will not allow running discussions. A motion to call the question and stop discussion must be properly seconded before it can be considered. Voters who speak to an article may not immediately call the question in order to stop discussion about it. A motion to table an article will not be in order unless it is to table until a specific time and place before the close of this meeting. A motion to reconsider or restrict reconsideration of an article after discussion is closed will not be in order unless seconded and approved. Reconsidered articles must be discussed and closure reached before the end of the meeting. A motion to adjourn or recess will not be accepted until all warrant articles have been discussed. Members of the board and committee members and voters will refrain from using acronyms best you can, and that's about it. I'm thinking someday we'll just hand out moderator's rules and we'll start the meeting. But we'll get there. Okay. The first point of order. It is your prerogative to permit non-voters to speak at this meeting. It has been customary to allow employees, council, and non-registered residents to speak at these meetings. If you wish to continue to do so, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. Okay. So here we go. Article A, to elect by ballot the following school district offices. There's one school board member for 3 years, another school board member for 3 years, and then a third school board member for 2 years. Any discussion on Article A? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 1. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote at the first session of the annual school district meeting for the purposes set forth therein totaling $22,342,614. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $22,806,098, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the Litchfield School District or by law, or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Section 10 and 16 to to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The estimated tax impact for the operating budget is 63 cents. For the default budget, it's $1.15. This is not recommended by the school committee, the school board, 040. It is recommended by the budget committee, 500. Mrs. Couture, would you like to come speak to the article?
Thank you. The Budget Committee wanted to do a streamlined process this year. So we received the budget in November, and they wanted to receive all of the information about the budget before making any decisions. The superintendent and business administrator went through the district goals. The committee heard the presentation over two meetings of all of the budget items. We had the school board representative, the superintendent, business administrator, and then depending on the department being presented, we had the department heads. After we received all the information, we then took a look at the big picture. Our criteria is looking at 3-year average spending over the last 3 years of the district. We do seriously consider the priority set forth by the school board and the superintendent. We look at the current budget and what the spending is running year to date. We look at enrollment projections to see what it's going to look like in the coming years. We look at the rationale for why the dollars are being requested. And then we take a look at what's a reasonable budget to consider for the citizens. Some of the things that impacted the budget, the school district on their own decided to take an attrition. Attrition means that when you have employees who leave, new employees who come in, sometimes they're at a lower rate of pay or lower benefits, and traditionally we see about a $200,000 attrition, a decline associated with that. So the school district took it upon themselves to do it this year on their own, before the budget committee did. They also made reductions in many other areas of the budget. Enrollment has continued to decline. We're projected to have 50 fewer students in September, and projected revenues were down due to the reduction in state aid, which is based on our enrollment. The cost for full-time kindergarten was included in the budget, and other than the committee made a reduction for kindergarten, feeling that it was better, something better suited to have the community vote on. And after the reduction of kindergarten, the committee made some additional reductions of about a little over $50,000. So the recommended budget is $33,941 more than last year's approved budget, an increase of 0.15%, and the default budget is $463,484 higher than what the budget committee is proposing. Again, some of the things that impacted the budget, even after the attrition taken by the school district, there's about a $100,000 increase in salaries. Our transportation costs were increased due to our contract. Technology services, just under $100,000. That's replacing older computers. Special services, $125,000 increase, including a little over $83,000 increase in handicap tuition. So the potential impact is 63 cents, and this would be about a $189 increase on a house valued at $300,000, or about $284 on a house valued at $450,000. The default budget, again, coming in higher, would have a higher impact, and that would be estimated at $345 increase on a house valued at $300,000, or $518 on a $450,000 house valuation. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the discussion on Article 1? Mr. Bohm.
My big concern is...
Ralph Bohm.
Ralph Bohm, 6 Gibson Drive. My big concern is the default budget. And first I'd like to explain why. And the moderator mentioned that we're running on SB2 rules. But this became law in 1995. Litchfield probably adopted it in 96, probably effective in 97. Purpose of the law came about because it became apparent that some towns did not have enough space to continue with regular town or school district meetings, and to allow more people the opportunity to vote on the budget and warrant articles. I remember some years ago, Merrimack, before they went to SB2, had to have their meeting in 3 different auditoriums, all wired together. One of the arguments concerning the bill was, what if the voters did not like the budget and voted no? Then there would have to be another meeting and on and on. So the idea of a default budget came about. The default budget based on the previous year was never supposed to be higher than the proposed operating budget. And for the first few years, it wasn't. Then some school boards, their lawyers, along with the Hampshire School Board Association and Municipal Association and others, determined that if they interpreted the law the way they wanted, they could manipulate the default budget so it would be higher than the proposed operating budget, thereby guaranteeing they would get their budget passed. And being a state rep for 10 years and on the Education Committee for 8 years, I know what the law says, and I know what the intent of the law was. And this year, there are at least 4 bills to try and fix the default so that this manipulation does not continue. However, there are people on the various committees that like the fact that they continue what they are doing, and lobbying by the Municipal Association and the School Board Association make passing those bills difficult. So it can be, also, lawyers do what they're told to do. And looking at our budget this year, our school board will probably win a prize for putting forth a default budget that is more than $500,000 or $500,000 higher than it should be. And there's no review on the default budget. The school board can make it anything they want. No agency verifies it. A copy must be sent to the DRA, but they don't have any review of it. And we, nor the budget committee, have any review of it. They can make it $3 million higher. Nobody checks it. Now, we're probably here for the lawyer that this is the law, but we've heard lawyers say what the clients want to hear. For example, in 2002 or 2003, the then school board had the lawyers come up with an opinion stating that the school board didn't have to go by the budget committee recommendation. Some of you might remember that. And for those that remember, every warrant article failed that year due to that phony recommendation. I've been a selectman, budget committee, rec commission, and school board, so I know the game. And I would recommend that we do the same thing this year, saying yes to the budget and no on everything else, so maybe next year the school board will stop playing games with the voters. And some years ago, the Milford School District created their own policy to make sure that this abuse would not be done in Milford. Considering that the proposed operating budget is too high and puts our cost per student at more than $19,000 per student. It's probably one of the highest in the state. Amazing that as our student population decrease, we keep increasing the budget, raising our cost per student. My taxes went up 10% last year. How many years will this continue? As the town population has not increased in probably like 20 years and student population decreases. So maybe the school board, when they get up and speak, would like to tell us what they are planning to do with the additional $500,000 if the budget fails. There is some talk that they will implement full-day kindergarten if the warrant article fails, but that would be breaking the law. So what? Thank you.
So again, just to clarify, the Budget Committee has no, it has nothing to do with the default budget.
Mr. Spencer.
Question on the enrollments, Mr. Couture. You indicated that their overall projections are down for next year. I think about 66 of those were at grades 1 through 4. Does the proposed operating budget include teacher reductions at GMS?
The proposed budget includes a reduction of a second grade teacher and 2 middle school teachers. And actually, at GMS, I believe it's going to be an increase of 4 students. The biggest drop is at the middle school.
Okay, thank you. And can I assume that those teachers that are indicated as being reduced in the proposed budget are in fact included in the default budget?
The answer is yes.
Thank you.
It's contractual, and it's always been in the default budget. Anything contractual is in the default budget. And
That I
just-
fully understand. I understand the mechanics of it. Just want to make sure I understood what was in the default budget.
Yep.
And how, as Mr. Bohm points out, how it gets manipulated, not purposely, but by law.
Okay.
Mr. Bork, did you want to respond to Mr. Bohm's?
I do.
I didn't think to.
I just want to clarify a few points that Mr. Bowen made. First of all, our budget that was submitted to the Budget Committee was $127,000 over the default budget. So we didn't submit a budget under the default. The DRA has a copy of our default budget. The Budget Committee accepted our default budget, and the school board voted and accepted the default budget. And then you also mentioned $19,000 per student. We actually submitted just a tad over $14,000 per student.
The state average is $15,310.
Okay. And the state average is $1,300 more than ours. Again, the Budget Committee cut the difference between the default and the budget. The school board didn't submit it that way.
One follow-up, please. We should have had this together. Good.
Ralph Bohm, 6 Gibson Drive. First of all, teachers are fired and rehired every year, so it's not contractual. So that's an argument that can be made by any lawyer to go to the reverse of that. Also, if I take I know you can play games with the cost per student. Yes, it's like $14,000 without the state aid, but the total, if I take the number of students, divide it into your 22 million, it's $19,000 per student. Stop playing games with the numbers and giving us a spin.
Ma'am, go ahead.
Robin Corbeil, 4 Nesmith Court. I wouldn't presume to know more than Ralph or Bill Spencer knows on this topic, but first of all, I feel like the default budget can't be just anything. But also, on the other hand, this is about trust. We have a budget committee who takes the budget and, in my mind, can cut it to anything, correct?
Correct.
They could cut it down to 0 if they wanted to, correct?
That's correct.
So you could never have a law that says the default budget had to be less than the current budget, because if our budget committee has the power to cut the school board's budget to 0, you couldn't have a default that would be 0 by law, right? Because then we wouldn't have a school system. So I think that we elect people to these 2 boards. Hopefully we trust the people that we elect. They have 2 different viewpoints, 2 different perspectives. They deliver 2 different budgets. The people then vote on them on election day, on voting day. So I think it's about trust. I think that some of the words they use, though I think you're accurate, are a little extreme. I think that, you know, and surely the numbers, I'm not as good with them with the laws as these gentlemen are, but I think that the Budget Committee has a certain amount of power in this town to make changes to what the school board recommends. And the school board has a certain amount of power to recommend what they think they need to educate our kids.
Mrs. Spencer.
Bill Spencer. I sort of just have to take objection to what you said about the default budget and what was presented to the Budget Committee. I'm not involved anymore, but I assume that the default budget doesn't include the kindergarten costs. Yet it's meant to reflect what the operating budgets are for the previous year. So the fact that you included the kindergarten in the proposed operating budget, I think muddies the whole water. I think if you want to compare apples to apples, you compare what you're looking for the operating budget, which you're going to do later on, and what's the default budget. And in fact, that is over significantly.
Our operating budget included costs to operate a kindergarten. But in all our budgets in the past, anything that the school board deemed necessary to move the district forward, it's been in the operating budget and requested in the operating budget.
Dennis Miller, 37 Wren Street. Just a point of comparison, I know Mrs. Couture put up what the budget was compared to what the proposed budget is compared to the budget last year. But if you look back, in 2016, there was 1,314 students. Was the average daily membership as calculated by the state. The audited statement said the district spent $20,664,418. For 2019 school year, the projections indicate 1,219 students. We're asking for $22,342,416. We're asking for $1.678 million more for 95 fewer students. So while it's useful to compare the budget to the budget, the district never spends 100% of the budget, which I commend them for. But nobody ever goes back and looks what we actually spend. And to Ralph's point on his calculation, the state does their calculation, and they've got some magical formula that I've never been able to duplicate. But we are asking for $1.678 million more for 95 fewer students. I'm moving out of town. It's not going to affect me. But what I can say is that trajectory is unsustainable, particularly if enrollments start to rise. The district will be looking at $3 million year over year or year over year over year on the budget.
Dennis, unfortunately, I can just explain, I can't, I suppose, give you the entire answer, but unfortunately, costs go up every year. So we can't compare 3 years ago to this year when you look at teachers' contracts and everything else. I mean, costs have just escalated. Fuel costs, labor costs, supply cost. It all plays part of it.
I understand.
You still have to operate 3 schools. It's still the same size schools. It's still the same schools, same amount of teachers, basically, and costs just rise.
I understand that costs go up, and we can argue about whether an individual cost goes up or down and what the state does with its retirement contribution. All I'm saying is, over 2 years, we're asking for $1.6 million, and for the community, my opinion, that's not sustainable, particularly if enrollments rise in the future with the increase in housing that seems to be picking up.
Ma'am.
Again, just final thoughts. Went to the grocery store yesterday. Eggs are $2.50. They used to be 99 cents. The cost changes. We're presenting 2 different budgets to the town. Let them vote on it. The budget committee put together a budget that they recommended. The school board then responded by putting together a budget that they responded. Let the community decide what they can afford.
One of the things that impacts the total budget as well is the revenues. And we, as a town on the school district, they lost about $300,000 in revenue for the coming year because of the decline in enrollment. So that I think really adds to the impact of the budget.
Ma'am.
Tiffany McKinnon, 30 Burgess Drive. Just in response to the budgets with the enrollment numbers, like the Dennis did bring up, we do have a big development coming into town, which will be mostly families, which will be new numbers. I know you need to base your budget on the current numbers, but we do have other houses turning over to young and new families. We have teachers on the bubble that we want to keep. So these are teachers that don't want to live year by year, whether or not they're coming back the next year. We also have students that need more help with math. So it makes sense to me to keep the staff that we have and to give the resources that we need so that these kids get what they need. So in regards to that, like how does that play into this lower budget number that would cut important resources?
So the projections that are used are called 3-year weighted average, which looks at the most recent 3 years and weights what happened last year, the strongest, what happened 2 years ago, a little less, and what happened 3 years ago, even less than that. So it is slow to take into account things like new developments, but within a year or two as those increase, it will take those into account. So what we're looking at right now is based on what our history has been over the last 3 years, which has not been an increase in school population.
Could you restate your name?
Tiffany McKinnon.
Tiffany.
And I understand that, but I think we're coming off of the ebb and heading back into the increase. So I think it's just something important that we all need to think of when we vote, is that we're starting to increase our numbers again. Our current 2nd and 3rd grade classes are back to 5 teachers each, not the 4. So you're starting to see the push up again. So I think it's just something people need to remember when they vote. We need to keep these numbers. And also, if you have a couple years with a smaller student-teacher ratio, when you have kids that need more help educationally, you're not going to lose out if the teacher can give more time to each student in those years to help them get back up to where they need to be.
Mr. Spencer.
All right, just a comment. The reductions in enrollments are at the lower levels. That was predicted because the birth rates in town have been so low. At LMS, I believe the change is minimal, and that's because you had a class that was fairly large, a fourth grade moving into the fifth grade, which makes sense why you might see a problem with LMS. Campbell High School is basically flat because the kids that were in the school system are progressing through it. Eventually, the kids that are in there right now are going to get to Campbell, and that's going to reflect in reduced numbers at Campbell. That's 10 years away. Okay, so yes, we will have movement in town. We will have new families move in. We'll have new families move out. The numbers for the current years, near term, are great numbers, and you ought to go with them.
Further discussion on Article 1.
Excuse me, was that the discussion on Article 1, or was that just her budget presentation? Because I do have...
Further discussion, Article 1, if you'd like to.
Could you put Article 1 up?
Yep.
Okay, I am very puzzled about this particular article, because as I understand it, the number that the Budget Committee recommended is about $50,000 less than what the school board had requested for those same functions. Yet, and that's in the noise, by the way, in the budget, $50,000 is a noise. Yet the Budget Committee, the school board has voted not to recommend the operating budget, which is within $50,000 of what they said they needed. I don't understand the budget, the school board's recommendation.
The school board didn't recommend it because the budget committee cut approximately $500,000 from our budget.
And that was for kindergarten, correct?
Costs associated with kindergarten. That's correct.
And you've got that as an additional warrant article, which you're recommending. So you're double dipping if you don't recommend this. I don't understand it, Brian. I honestly don't. I mean, you're telling people, vote for the default budget, which includes the kindergarten numbers.
We're not telling, no, Bill, we're not telling people to vote for the default budget. We're simply saying that we don't support the budget that the budget committee put together. That's not our budget.
That is the most ridiculous answer I've ever heard, because if people don't vote for if they follow your recommendation, then they're effectively voting for the default budget. I mean, you know that, I know that, we've had that discussion.
I don't think we have a recommendation up there, Bill, right now.
I'm sorry?
We just don't recommend the budget.
Because they took kindergarten out?
Because it's not our budget. It's not the budget we presented to the budget committee.
You know, Mr. Bohm talked about trust, and I got to tell you, something like that takes all my trust away from the school board and their ability to make recommendations to the public. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
I think if you look back at history, Bill, when you were on the budget committee also, that there were several budgets that the budget committee cut that the school board did not recommend.
I fully understand that, and they had good reason for it. There is absolutely no reason in this case, because what you asked for and what the budget committee has proposed in this article is within $50,000. And it's ridiculous for you not to agree with that. It's your number.
You're funny.
Is it really $50,000?
That's $500,000.
$500,000 budget to the default budget.
I count 463, 474, between the two.
So the Budget Committee cut kindergarten. Beyond kindergarten, we only cut an additional little over $50,000. We support kindergarten in the warrant article, so the sum difference is correct. Bill's right, it's about $50,000.
It's not really, is it, Brian?
Yeah. Because we support the warrant
You're
article
both
for
on stage doing
kindergarten.
opposite heads.
Yeah. No, like, so you guys removed kindergarten,
From the main part of the budget.
from the main part of their budget, and then you only took another 50,000 off of it? That's correct?
And just on the flip side, to give kudos to the school district, they did cut a lot of their own budget, so there was not a lot for us to cut, other than the cost of kindergarten.
I think that goes into that trust thing. We've been asking for years for, people to do the right thing and have transparency, and it seems like we're moving in that direction, where it's been a good move. So.
Do we have any further discussion? Yes, we do.
I'm sorry, just a quick question. Natalie Hurdy, 14 Lund Street. I just want to understand the numbers. Just bear with me for a minute. So the default budget would include the money that was taken out from kindergarten from the proposed budget, correct, Brian? Correct. Okay. So let's say the default budget passes and Article 2 for kindergarten passes.
Well, it doesn't include all the costs.
Okay. That's what I want to understand, because I'm sorry, I think somebody said expressed the term double dipping.
What's in the default budget are the dollars that were taken out for positions.
Okay,
Those are contractual.
yeah.
So those are in the default budget. Any other costs associated with kindergarten are not in the default budget.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be thick, I just want to be sure I understand it here. So let's say again, like both passes, would that impact maybe the default, like whatever total budget is, to reflect whatever would be a double dipping situation, if indeed there is one? Does that make sense?
If what, the default budget and kindergarten
Yeah, if
passed?
let's say both, let's say the default budget and...
So if Article 1 fails, and you get a
Yes.
default budget,
Yes, thank
and
you.
Article 2
And-
passes,
Correct. Like, so like I said, I'm just really want to make it clear. If there is any kind of overlap, I don't like the term double dipping, it's silly. If there is overlap between...
There'd be tremendous overlap, yes, to answer your question.
Then you would, obviously, I'm assuming you would adjust to take that into consideration, is what I'm hoping.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
sir. All right. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm not sure how to respond to that last answer. If this article fails and you have a default, then you have money in the budget. If article, whatever the kindergarten article number
Two.
was, passes, you have money for that, and you're authorized to spend it on kindergarten. The money that was in the default budget is there, and it can be spent as the school board feels for whatever they want to do. It has nothing to do with kindergarten whatsoever.
Bill, I can
That's
stand,
why-
Bill, if the default budget passed, I'm sorry, if our budget failed, and Article 2 passed, I can assure you that, no, it's not the entire school board that's going to be here, because there'll be two members that'll be different. But I'll give you my word, that money is coming back, would be coming back. It would not be spent.
Brian, it's not that I don't trust you,
I know.
but it's the recommendation up there that bothers the heck out of me. And now, if in fact the kindergarten article were to fail, you still can't use this money from the default budget for kindergarten.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's a nonsensical thing to do this, because you can't use it at kindergarten anyways. So I'm back to your recommendation, which I don't think makes any sense whatsoever. And I'm back to the trust issue, and I hear what you say, and I know it's a 5-member board, so who knows what your school board will do with that money.
It would be my recommendation that the school board reconsider their recommendation, their non-recommendation of this, because the scenario that was just discussed, should both pass, they may not use that money, but that still has an impact on the tax rate in October, and you'll see a 50-cent spike in your taxes for money that is not going to be used. So it's cleaner and it's better if the vote was, if the school board would recommend the budget instead of not recommending the budget, because it will have an impact on your taxes even if they don't spend it.
No, it has to change your dollar. Come on, get us halfway, come on.
Is it me? All right. I'm just checking.
We're done with all.
Okay, so I wasn't paying attention. Tell me what happened.
We adjourned.
My question is for the school board. If the articles that are put before the voters to vote on all pass exactly the way they are, do you have what you need to continue to run our school district at the level that it is currently at and potentially to grow? Because I think that our school district has some pretty good results when you look at testing and some different things and some really exciting things and great things that are happening in our schools. Because there's a million different scenarios and everybody has the right to choose whether they want or don't want to vote. But if Article 1 and is it Article 2 this kindergarten?
Yeah.
Article 2 pass, do you have the money that you need to do what you need to do to keep our school districts at least where it's at and potentially grow?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sir.
William Barrett, 53 Pilgrim Drive. Just in deference to Ms. Couture's last response, I don't think the questioner heard the response.
Yeah, I was bothering him.
Just want to clarify that this gentleman got his...
Thank you, sir. Yes, got it. Could you repeat your answer to that question?
So the response is, if both of the default budget passes and the
If the
kindergarten...
Article 1 fails,
Right. If Article 1 fails, so the default number is the one that is approved, and kindergarten passes, even if the school district says they will not spend the extra money, it will have a 50-cent spike in your taxes in October because the state will have to take into account these numbers when setting the tax rate, not on what the school district may not spend.
got it.
That sets up my question or my comment. As presented as a voter, I feel that Article 1 is going to, the average voter reading this, they support the school board's recommendation, they're going to defeat it, and then thus, they then follow the school board's, and we're not supposed to talk about other articles with this article, but the recommendation by the school board in the second article will then cause them to vote. So I think we're heading towards that scenario with both, which I don't think is a correct representation. I think it's misreading as a voter to see the $500,000 being recouped in another article, regardless of whether the outcome of how it's processed. But that presentation looks fun.
Gotcha. Ma'am.
Lori Summers, Stark Lane. I'm just kind of wondering, how come the default budget doesn't just include that $50,000 cut? Why do we have to include all that extra money for kindergarten?
It's independent of kindergarten. That just happens to be the way the numbers fall.
Okay.
It's just a sum total.
Ma'am.
Jen Burke, 1 Westview Drive. I would like to propose an amendment to Article 1 to reduce the budget from $22,342,614 to $613.
You want to change the article just to, yes, you're going to have to submit that.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
So,
Discussion on the proposed amendment. I need it in writing. And you get the name.
So my recommendation is in hopes that I understand why the school board voted against this, but I think the public is speaking pretty clearly that there's a good faith issue, and it would be better for the, I can't think of the right word, but basically better for everyone if they would reconsider and vote on this again and be in support of their budget.
So you're proposing a change to the article for the purposes of the school board re-voting on the number,
Yes, sir.
and thus changing their recommendation on the ballot,
Yes. Potentially. I mean, that would be up to
or
you.
not.
Right.
And basically, the law is that the Budget Committee cannot take up an article after deliberative session unless it's changed, and the school board cannot take up a warrant article unless it's changed. So this is a dollar change in hopes that the school board will reconsider their not recommending the budget.
Okay. Further discussion on the proposed amendment. Those in favor of the proposed amendment to change the dollar amount of the operating budget from 22342,614 to 613, to 22342,613, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The warrant article is changed, so the operating budget is 22342,613. Further discussion on the amended Article 1.
Just a thank you to the Budget Committee, and I hope that the school board will change their recommendation on this warrant article.
Further discussion on the amended Article 1. Ma'am.
Hi, Nicole 4085 Page Road. I just, as a newbie to all this, want to make sure I understand. So we amended to change it, so it has to go back to the school board to vote. Would the first time we see the outcome of that vote, like actually, I know we can watch the...
On March 13th.
But it would be on the ballot itself. So the typical voter who maybe isn't as informed.
Correct.
The next time you would see that is voting.
Well, he's going to see two things. He's either going to see the same recommendation
Right, or if it were to...
and be just
change.
as confused,
Yeah.
or he's going to see both committees recommending, right?
Thanks.
Those are the options.
So, just to clarify, or to give you an answer, after this deliberative, the Budget Committee will be meeting. They'll have to re-vote on the budget. Do you have to re-vote? You're going to have to re-vote also, right? Correct. So the Budget Committee will have to re-vote on the budget. After the Budget Committee meets and adjourns, the school board is meeting, and we will have to vote on it. So your answer is you could know today if you stay
Oh, you
around.
want to attend the meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
All right, sorry, I need my glasses for this. It says on here that Article 1 is not recommended by the school board, but up on your little slidey there, it says recommended
look
by
at
the
that.
school board. So maybe you already voted and you don't know it?
But there's 5 of us.
Or maybe you're predicting what's going to happen? I don't know.
Good
But I guess
catch.
someone was
Excellent. Which is the correct article?
concerned about whether that needs to be fixed.
The not recommended is the correct article, I'm told, by the one who knows.
So is that correct?
Yeah, it should say not recommended.
Okay, thank
Yeah. Coop.
It actually is,
Aye.
in fact, it's written correctly because it said not recommended.
Right.
We would
That's
have
what-
to be voted 4-0-0.
Oh, yeah, the numbers are correct, but the wording isn't correct. Okay, gotcha, good catch. Yes, sir.
Hi, Nathan Cooper, social studies teacher at Campbell High School and president of the Litchfield Education Association. I was just wondering if, or I should say first, thank you as always for letting members of the staff go ahead and speak. You don't have to, so I certainly appreciate that. My question is just, and perhaps some voters might want to consider this too, is just in terms of the positions for, or maybe this might be better for Article 2 in terms of how those positions are going to be funded, would that be, should we wait for that discussion on Article 2, or would that be
Yeah, we really
relevant
can't
right
discuss
now?
Article 2
I think
just
it
yet.
goes into
Okay,
Article 2.
I just wanted to, just considering the conversation that was going on, so, thank you.
Yep. Further discussion on Article 1 as amended. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as amended. I got a question before I... Never mind. Article 2. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $519,732 for the purpose of funding the costs associated with the expansion of the kindergarten program at Griffin Memorial School from half-day to full-day. This appropriation is anticipated to be offset by $96,280 in aid from the state of New Hampshire. The estimated tax impact is 48 cents. This is recommended by the school board 400. It's also recommended by the budget committee 600. Ms. Harrison.
Hi. Sorry about that. So, kindergarten.
You want to go into presentation mode, I think.
Sorry.
Little slideshow thing.
All right.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
recognize
Oh.
you for one.
Carrie Douglas, 9 Pheasant Street. I just wanted to make a motion to reconstruct consideration for the Article 1.
We have a motion to reconstruct reconsideration Article 1. Do we have a second?
Or constrict.
Who seconded it? Bill Spencer. All in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Okay, so we'll restrict reconsideration of Article 1 at today's meeting. Article 2, proceed, ma'am.
All right, good morning. Did you already read through the article for Article 2?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm here to talk to you about kindergarten, which I think will be a much lighter conversation than the one about the budget. So I'm Christine Harrison. I'm vice chair of the school board. If you hang out at GMS, you've probably seen me volunteering. And I'm also a mom to an 8th grader and a 4th grader, which is my most important job. Before that job, I was a 1st grade teacher, and I've taught infants, toddlers, preschoolers, all the way up through 1st grade. So early education is kind of my wheelhouse, and my favorite thing to talk about. So let's think about, for a moment, go back in the Wayback Machine, and think about kindergarten when you were a kid. And here I have a report card from 1977 to 78 from kindergarten. I've blacked out the name to protect the innocent, but let's call her Jen. So Jen does very well in kindergarten. Well, she does okay. She's got G's, which is good. Her social development is good. She participates in class discussions. So this is what a typical kindergarten report card looked like in 78. Sorry, January of 78 it would have been. Right, Jen?
Give or take.
The point I'm trying to make here is that kindergarten has changed along with the report cards. If you look at the math skills section over on the right-hand side, there are 2 main standards for kindergarten in 1978. Understands and uses number concepts, and understands and uses vocabulary. So gets numbers and what they mean, and can use the words to describe what's happening in math. And I picked out math because with all of the, the focus on STEM and STEAM, nowadays math has become kind of a focus here in Litchfield. So let's take a look at the report card from today. Oh, there it is. Yep. So not your parents' kindergarten. Math now includes such standards as recognizes numbers to 20, counts to 100 orally, counts objects to 20, sorts and classify objects, identify, extend, and create patterns, knows the days of the week, the months of the year, identify simple shapes, solid shapes like cylinder, sphere, and cone, adds objects to 20, and can interpret a graph. So the standards have changed. Kindergarten has changed. So what we're looking at nowadays is a much more rigorous program in kindergarten. So here's our district mission: to provide rigorous and varied educational opportunities that engage all students to attain their highest level of intellectual, social, physical, and emotional growth. And I highlighted the words at the bottom of our mission statement. Those are I'm going to combine social and emotional. Those are the 3 areas of growth that that are our focus and our mission to grow as a district. Currently, we're not meeting those goals. We offer a half-day program that has almost 100 minutes of intellectual instruction. But look at if you look at the physical and the social emotional areas, we're way below growing those areas. With the proposed half-day, we more than double our physical opportunities and our social emotional opportunities for our students. So a full-day program would add to every area of development, and we would be able to focus more on the whole child, growing the whole child. Let's see. So how do we all fit it in? We take a 6-hour day, basically, and we shrink it into 2.5 hours. The standards and the curriculum and the resources that we have for kindergarten are developed for a full day program, a 6-hour program. In order to meet those standards and fulfill those curriculum obligations, we cut things like independent practice in language arts and math, science and social studies,
And we diminish fine motor activities and gross motor activities, things like recess and movement and playing. As a result, you can see our focus is mainly on the intellectual growth of our children and not so much on the socialization and the motor, the physical growth. An interesting point is socialization, which is sharing, collaborating, communication. Those are all high indicators of success later on in life, not just in school, but if you have a strong social emotional background, development, foundation, you'll be more successful in school and beyond, because those are things like resilience and perseverance and collaboration and community and empathy. Poor Jen did okay in kindergarten. She got G's, but because she had resilience, perseverance, collaboration, communication, and empathy, she's gone far in life. Right now, we're not growing our students in those areas as much as we should be, and can. More time in the day means more time for special supports. Many of our kindergarten students require special services like OT and PT and extra supports to help them get to where they should be developmentally. Currently, those kinds of services are done either in the classroom or students are pulled out from the classroom to work one-on-one with our specialists. By being pulled out of the classroom, maybe for 30 minutes a day or a few times a week, depending on what their education plan calls for, they're missing out on a large percentage of their classroom time, their classroom instruction. So an already shortened day, an already packed short day becomes an even shorter day for students who need those extra supports. So this is just a neat figure. A full-day kindergarten has 1,080 hours a year in school. That's just time in school. Half-day kindergarten is only 450 hours a year. That's based on a 6-hour full-day program and a 2.5-hour half-day program. We have the same, like I said before, we have the same standards. The kids need to be ready for first grade, whether or not they have a full-day program or a half-day program. But kids in a half-day program only get 42% of the time that a full-day student receives. The other reason we're proposing our full-day kindergarten is to go back to our mission statement, to provide rigorous and varied educational opportunities that engage all students. Currently, we have a half-day program. Parents and families who feel that a full-day program is better for their student, is what their student needs, go outside of GMS to receive to get that full-day experience. It's an issue of equity, and this is based on our first graders for this year, our current year. Because we offer a half-day program, we're missing out on a lot of kids coming to GMS, which results in gaps in first grade readiness. We have a lot of different ranges of ability. 61% of our kids in first grade went to GMS for our half-day program. The remaining 39% attended outside kindergarten. Private kindergarten, 18%. Public kindergarten, not in district, 10%. 9% of our kids didn't attend any kindergarten program, and 2% of our kids came from outside of the U.S., so we're not sure what kind of early learning they had. That results in a wide range of abilities coming into first grade. So our first grade teachers are meeting their brand new first grade students. Some of them are all the way from, some of the kids have never seen a book before, they're not aware of what print is, all the way up to kids that are reading at a 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level. It's a wide range of abilities, and the teachers need to assess and then develop instruction to meet those needs. As a result, we have extra kind of safety nets in place to catch those kids up. The goal is to have everyone on grade level by the end of 3rd grade, because if you don't have the reading skills and the math skills, if you don't have a strong enough foundation in reading and math skills by the end of 3rd grade, you will struggle throughout the rest of your education. 3rd grade is kind of the breaking point. So we use small reading groups, reading tutors, Title I, IEPs, math tutors, 504 plan referrals, and our collaborative assistance team to meet the needs of those kids starting in 1st and 2nd grade to get them caught up by the end of 3rd. So, some of you, and I'm one of them, my son went to half-day kindergarten because that's what we had here at GMS. My son had the benefit of a stay-at-home mom who was educated in early child development. So I was able to take him on field trips, and we went to the library, and I read to him every night, and all those opportunities I was able to give my kid. I still would have liked to send him to a full-day program because he did miss out on the social component. I didn't have 12 other kids his age in my house to play with and figure out collaborating and sharing and communication. But he did okay. He did fine in kindergarten, and he was ready for first grade. The difference is we're finding more and more families are not able to provide those opportunities for their kids. Their kids are not getting the independent practice that they need at home for mastery of the skills taught in a half day. So when we have a kindergarten class of 16 kids, 18 kids, a lot of the instruction time has to be guided instruction. That's with the teacher basically directing the students. This is, back when we were kids, writing on the chalkboard, which is now a smartboard, or reading a book together, or whole class group lessons. What half-day kids miss out on is that independent practice, the exploration and the social time needed to develop those skills and master those academic standards. So every student, our proposal includes a half-day program as well. Some families are able to give their kids those opportunities and only need a half day. Or my kid gets tired in the afternoon and still needs a nap. I don't want him to stay for the full day. That's wonderful that you can give your kids those opportunities. But full day benefits the kids that don't have those opportunities at home. It also benefits your half-day kid when they get to first grade. If we've met the needs of all the students, or as many students as we possibly can, and all the students are on a level playing field coming into first grade, that's less time the teacher has to spend assessing those kids and using resources and catching those kids up, which means that your kid gets more quality education time. So let's look at the community impact. How does it benefit our district? Why does Litchfield need full day K? So nationwide, as of 2015, 81% of kindergarten students are enrolled in a full day program. The map is from Education Week Research Center from 2013, and it shows that New Hampshire is one of 4 states that has less than 60% enrollment. You can see the gray states are New Hampshire, Utah, Idaho, and California. The other states all have at least 60% of their students in kindergarten enrolled in a full day program. New Hampshire is one of the last 4 to get up to 60%. So as of 2015, 81% of kindergarten students are enrolled in a full day program nationwide. That shows in our testing scores, our test scores going into first grade. So these are test scores from the fall of first grade for the current first grade class. The NEWA map results is a national, we've taken a national sample of incoming first graders, and they have divided all the test scores into the low average, average, high average, and high quintiles. So a fifth, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth. So average would be, these 2 quintiles are the low and the low average, which is about 40th percentile. So an average district would expect to see 40% of their students in the below 40th percentile. Does that make sense? Okay. I know, this is the one I struggle with. So, an average district would see 40% down in that last column. We have a disproportionate number of students coming into first grade in the lower, that are falling below average. We have 55% who are below the 40th percentile in reading in 2016. Reading in 2017, we did a little bit better than average. Math, we're at 48% and 50% for the last 2 years. Those numbers should, if we were average, those numbers would be 40 or below. We should be above average, meaning our numbers should be lower than 40% in that last column. So that's just showing that our incoming first graders, compared to nationwide to other incoming first graders, are scoring below average because they're not ready for first grade. That's the short story of that one. So these are New Hampshire. I'm sure you recognize it. The first map, this is to show you the number of towns in New Hampshire that offer full-day kindergarten. And I'm going to have them scrolling across the bottom. There they are. The first map is from 2015-2016. This is the state data showing the towns in New Hampshire in blue that offer full-day kindergarten. In the last 2 years, 2016 to 2018, you can see where the darker blue, I had to borrow Bob's big crayons and color them in.
Looks like a school closing.
It does look like a school closing.
Open to see.
There is school tomorrow in all of these towns, Monday in all these towns.
And get a nice call from Miss O'Neill.
So the dark blue schools are the schools that added full-day kindergarten between 2016 and 2018. And Litchfield is one of 9 schools proposing full-day K in 2018 through 2019. So you can see most of the state, in fact, it's 87.2% of the state of New Hampshire, of towns in the state of New Hampshire offer full-day kindergarten. 5 districts or 5 towns offer a tuitioned full-day kindergarten program, which I know that has come up in the past, but it's our goal to provide an equitable education experience for all of our students. If we charge a fee, there will be students who can't attend our full-day program based on their ability to pay for it. And that is not our goal. Our goal is to provide an equitable opportunity for all of our students. And we're up to the P's, by the way. Do you want to see the whole rest of them, or are we good? So if we look at rankings, GMS, sorry, I forgot it was 2 clicks. If we look at our school rankings with the rest of New Hampshire, GMS is currently ranked 54th out of 229 elementary schools. And Litchfield School District is 41st out of 153. I feel, and I know a lot of parents feel, that our kids deserve better than number 54. If we look at the top 10 elementary schools in the top 10 school districts, they all offer full-day kindergarten. If we were to back that out to the top 20, 19 of the top 20 elementary schools have full-day kindergarten. 17 of the top 20 school districts have full-day kindergarten. So clearly, Litchfield is lagging behind in our rankings, and offering full-day kindergarten is a part of that. We should be in the top 10. I fully believe that. It's one of the reasons I ran for school board in the first place. We have a parent education rate of 25% have had 4-year college or more. The New Hampshire average is 18.7. Our median household income is $105,000 a year. The New Hampshire state average is $71,000. Litchfield residents below the poverty line, 2.1%. The state average is 6.5%. So if you look at all of those indicators of student success, we should be ranked higher. We should be among the top 10 districts in the state. So the question everybody is waiting for. What is it going to cost? First of all, science tells us that investing in the earliest years of a child's life sets the foundation for all future learning and growth. This chart was produced by part of it's called the Heckman study, and they did a study of the return of investment on human capital. Basically, what it means is when you invest in the earliest learning possible, you get the most bang for your buck. You get the most return on your investment. Another way of saying that is it's more efficient biologically and economically to get things right the first time than to try to fix them later. We kind of see that with a lot of the supports and special services that we offer students in order to catch them up by 3rd grade. So back to the financials. Why now? 3 factors are coming into play this year to create kind of the perfect scenario for us to expand full-day kindergarten without a huge jump in your taxes. One is the increase in state aid with the kindergarten Keno bill. The second is the ability to use impact fees, and that construction costs are going to rise over time, of course. And we plan to reallocate teaching positions that would have been eliminated due to attrition. So, actually, today, the warrant article in front of you is,
Okay, we haven't done the,
we haven't done this yet.
Yes.
This is brand new information.
so look to the left.
Yes, so Article 2 as written is what is currently in the warrant article. That is the proposal that we brought forward, and we have since petitioned the Select Board to approve the use of impact fees.
All right, hold on.
Yes.
We cannot discuss Article, the amendment yet.
Oh, we
okay?
can't talk about
No,
it?
you haven't proposed it.
Okay,
Did you want to
you want to
propose the
propose it?
amendment?
sorry.
So we've discussed kindergarten. That's all we've discussed.
Hopefully you'll say that.
Say it?
Up as written?
Yeah. Can you bring it up to the beginning? There you go. Yep.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to amend Article 2 to read, "Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $774,242 for the purpose of funding the costs associated with the expansion of kindergarten program at Griffin Memorial School, half-day to full-day. The appropriation will be offset by $430,650 to come from state and local revenues."
Do we have a second? Who seconded? Name? Natalie? Yeah, get that. Do we have discussion on the proposed amendment? Sir?
$774,242.
And the second number would be, and this is offset, the appropriation is anticipated to be offset by,
Be offset by $430,650.
for the discussion. Go ahead.
So the motion to amend, we were notified last Saturday by the selectmen that they were going to grant us the use of impact fees to be utilized for this program in the sum of $231,700. Along with that is state aid of $96,280 and the use of $102,670 of unassigned fund balance. The decision was made that to lower the impact on the tax impact, they would purchase the 4-quad unit outright rather than leasing and utilizing impact fees to do so. So the tax impact would go down from 48 cents to 38 cents.
Questions on the proposed amendment to Article 2?
Yeah, I'm just puzzled why it went from 522,000 to
Stand out of the way, Brian.
774,000 appropriation. I don't understand that. It went up by $200,000?
Because we're buying it, so we...
It'll be a purchase rather than lease, so the lease payment's in that first one.
Okay, that makes sense. The impact fees, you say the selectmen have agreed that that's can be released, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
The selectmen have agreed that the impact fees can be released. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're taking $100,000 from the fund balance. What is your fund balance right now?
Offhand, I'm not sure.
You don't have one.
I don't.
The year's not over. So the answer is you don't know what it is.
That's why I don't know what the amount is. I know there will be some monies.
Well, in your MS-27, you've allocated $200,000 of fund balance to reduce taxes. Is that where this money's going to come from?
No.
Where's it going to come from?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, Bill?
We're talking about your fund balance, and in your MS-27, you've allocated $200,000 of fund balance to reduce the taxes. And you've also taken $50,000 of fund balance for Article 4. And now you're saying you want another $100,000 for the kindergarten, and you don't even know if you have a fund balance.
Right.
So I'm questioning whether you even know if you have the money
Well, the $200,000 was budgeted.
from the fund balance. I understand it's budgeted.
Traditionally, we do budget for $200,000 to go back from fund balance.
I understand that.
Over the past several years, there has been more funds available to return, like, for instance, this past year, we returned $485,000.
I'm not surprised.
The
by the way.
projections are that we will have additional money to return. Even with this investment, there will be additional money to return to offset tax.
So it could be even more than $102,000 you could use.
There could potentially be.
If you chose to, correct?
But this offset between the impact fees and what we're proposing for use from fund balance would pay off the four-room modular that we're proposing in one shot, and that payment would be done.
I'm only raising the question because you don't really know what your number is going to be for fund balance. You're anticipating it.
We're anticipating.
And I
we're
understand how you're doing that, and you're telling the voters going to be there, and my guess is it will be a plus more, based on what I saw in your current budget.
And based on the warrant article, anything that isn't spent on the warrant article obviously does retract, and that goes back to the taxpayers.
If you choose not to spend it. Yes.
I think we would track the warrant article pretty closely, and anything that's left on the warrant article,
Thank you.
Ma'am.
I just want to publicly thank all three boards for coming together and getting to this dollar amount, because I think it makes the probability of this warrant article passing so much more successful if we have all three boards working together, doing what's in the best interest of the town. So thank you.
Dennis Miller, 37 Ren Street. Brian, just a question. You also have Article 4 that's proposing to spend year-end fund balance?
Yep.
What's the order?
It goes in order of warrant article. So warrant article 2 would go first, and then 3, and then 4.
And then 3, and then 4. And what's the school board's position? Should some of that $102,670 have to come out of unexpended special education funds? Because that's historically been returned to the voters.
And it will be returned to the voters. Like Corey just said, the anticipation is that we will have the funds there as of right now. So that's the
And
plan.
if you don't?
We'll have to look for it elsewhere, but hopefully not. It won't be from special ed.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions on the proposed amendment to Article 2? Okay, so we can vote. We want to, can I have the... It's the one that you printed off, right? Okay. So, it's the one that you printed, I already have it. Yeah, can we put the article back up, the one that the original article? Okay, so the proposed amendment reads, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $774,242 for the purpose of funding the costs associated with the expansion of the kindergarten program at Griffin Memorial School from half-day to full-day. The appropriation will be offset by $430,650 to come from state and local revenues. Estimated tax impact would be 38 cents. Those in favor of the proposed amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those not opposed. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Okay, we now have a new Article 2, an amended Article 2. Further discussion on the amended Article 2.
Phil Reed, 7 Forest Lane. First of all, I'd like to thank you for teaching this old crew what kindergarten is now as opposed to what it was 100 years ago when I was there.
100?
One of the questions, and I don't know if you can answer it, but you gave a lot of emphasis on developing social skills. What happens to those social skills once these kids grow up and get a smartphone in their hands?
All the more importance to build them in kindergarten.
Mr. Bohm.
Ralph Baum, 6 Gibson Drive. And just to comment on, when I was on the school board, I always thought it was ludicrous we'd have to ask the selectmen for our impact fees. But anyway, that needs to be fixed.
But you
Also,
digress.
I'm not speaking for or against kindergarten, just to let you know, but just from my own. First of all, kindergarten is not mandatory. You do not have to send your kids to kindergarten, or you can send them someplace else or whatever. As for the need for full day, you can get just as many experts to say, no, it's not good, as to saying it is good. And as for the reading, I know one 2010 valedictorian who was the last person to know how to read in her first grade. Point is, all students progress at their own rate. That's why we don't test till 3rd grade. The point is, everybody needs to be at 3rd grade, everybody needs to be at the 3rd grade level. Not the 1st grade level, not the 2nd grade, the 3rd grade. And the point is, when she started reading Harry Potter. She skipped all those other books. But also, I did not go to kindergarten, but then we were doing cave drawings. But the point was, I started the 1st grade when I was 4. So yeah, like I said, everybody goes at their own speed. So it's up to the parent whether or not you want your kids to go to kindergarten or a full day or a half day someplace else. So I just wanted to make it clear that it is not mandatory.
You want to respond to that?
Could I?
Yeah.
That would be great. You're absolutely right. Full-day kindergarten is not state mandated. However, we are seeing an increase in our adequacy aid from the state for students who are enrolled in full-day kindergarten. What that means is, actually that was coming up in my other slides, but again, I'll refer to the math that shows you that 87.2% of the state provides full-day kindergarten for their kindergarten students. These are the kids that we're comparing our kids to. These are the towns. This is where our ranking comes into play. So, while it's not state mandated, I do believe it will be at some point. The rest of the country is looking at mandated pre-K. 81% of the kids of the country already have full-day kindergarten and have for a long time. It's not a newfound thing. I went to full-day kindergarten. I know a lot of us went to full-day kindergarten. It's not a trend in education, but I do think it's an area where we're lagging behind the rest of the state and the rest of the country.
Did you have more to present?
I do. I have more about the financials. So what I wanted to I'm sorry.
Well, we kind of had a bump there.
Okay.
So I know you have questions. Do you have questions on this?
Okay. I do have information.
But she's still presenting it. So let's her present it first.
Okay.
Okay.
So from the amended article, these are the numbers for the one-time startup costs. This is the first year's tax impact that we're looking at. Most of it is the purchase and install of the quad. I'm calling it the quad because it sounds much better than the portables. So the classrooms are it's a one structure with 4 100 square foot classrooms, which is required by the state for kindergarten, with an adjoining hallway, and each classroom has its own bathrooms, which if any of you have ever taken a 5-year-old to the bathroom, you know it's really important to have it as close as possible to the classroom. It includes the double doors on either end, and it will be secured with the same technology that we use for the other brick and mortar buildings with the key fob entry. So it'll be secure. These will be placed in front of the current modular classrooms that currently have kindergarten, and the expectation is that we'll be able to move two preschool classes out of the brick and mortar building and into the current portable classrooms. Does that make sense? So the recurring costs after the first year of building all the infrastructure, after the first year, the only recurring costs are for staffing, which are the 2 additional kindergarten teachers and 4 paras. 2 of the paras will be classroom paras who will help out with all of the students in the class, just like we have right now in our current kindergarten classes. And the other 2 paras are if we need them to meet the needs of our exceptional students. The recurring costs, the staffing costs, are not an increase. Well, okay. So here's my the tax impact over time. So for 18 and 19, the tax impact is, with the amendment, 38
This is-
cents.
yeah.
This is with the amended information. So with the amendment, the tax impact the first year is 38 cents per thousand. The following years, if everything stays the same, the only recurring costs are for the staffing, and those are at 17 cents per thousand. Those staffing costs are not an increase over what we're already paying for this current year's staffing budget. We're reallocating positions that are in this year's budget to kindergarten, so that remains, Corey doesn't like the word level, but it's consistent with this year's tax impact. Does that make sense? It will not be an additional 17 cents over what we're paying this current year. Right, Corey? All right. And that's all I have. Like I said, it's all about the kids, and if we can invest in the earliest education possible, then an educated workforce is the foundation of every community and the future of every economy. So I think I've made my point.
Further discussion, questions on Article 2? Bill, she's waiting. Go ahead, sir. Ma'am, sorry.
Really?
No,
No, just kidding. Natalie Hurdy, Lund Street. I just wanted to bring a perspective that it's more of a comment to support full-day kindergarten. I used to sub in the school district, and I had the pleasure to be in kindergarten for a few times, and lovely kids, but it's the pace that they have to go through is insane. They don't have time to breathe, because like Tina was saying, Ms. Harrison was saying, they have to cram 6 hours of education in 2.5 hours, so it's non-stop. And when we left, I was stressed from the fast pace, and they don't have a choice. And the other point is, I know that kindergarten is not necessary. Some of the older population might not have gone to kindergarten, but I can tell you, I look at what my kids are doing in 8th grade, like now they're 8th graders in high school and college, but I look at what they do in 1st grade versus what I did in 1st grade. It's different. It's even there, they're expected to already be reading. They're expected to already be doing basic addition, basic subtraction. That wasn't the case when I was in kindergarten in the early 70s. So we have to take that into consideration, and to me it makes sense that our district is behind because of that gap. And again, high school, they're in sophomore year, and some of them are doing calculus. I didn't touch calculus till I got to college. So again, the pace, the rigors have gone so much faster, so much further. I think it behooves us to offer that preparedness from kindergarten. So that was just my little question.
Mr. Spencer.
Could you put the original article up for a minute?
Sure.
I just want to point out, there were 2 changes made on this. That was the dollar amount, and the second change was the last sentence, this appropriation is anticipated to be offset by $96,000. The change that was made on the amended article is that this appropriation will be offset, which is a positive statement, which I don't think you can make, because we've already had a discussion on fund balance. You don't know. You think it's going to be there, but you don't know. So I would propose amending this article to read, change the will to it is anticipated.
We have a proposed amendment to the article. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
We have a second.
The $96,280 is not because of the impact fees. That's increased revenue from the state and state aid because of the Keno kindergarten bill. So
It doesn't matter anymore. It's the wording of the second of the amended article is now, he's proposing that we change the wording to the appropriation.
Okay.
I don't have it in writing, Bill, so what is it? Yeah.
I got you. That's all right. Thank you. So we want to make it say will?
The appropriation.
No.
So it would be, it is anticipated that the appropriation will be offset by.
Correct, which is exactly what the original article said.
I got you.
Do we Further discussion on the proposed amendment to the amended Article 2? Yep. Do you have it?
That was actually going to be my question. I think it would be very important for the voters to understand, I mean, will be is very, very strong.
Yeah.
That's 100%, this is the number, we're going to subtract that, that's what you're really doing. Anticipated, I don't know, I don't really know. I understand with the discussion, and that us here in this room today understand that, but we don't just have to convince the people in this room, we have to think about everybody else. So I would support whichever one is the reality. If it's will be, if that's what it is, which is what you read when you said the amended article, that should stay. That's very clear. If that's not it, if we're not 100% there and that's not the reality, then sure, anticipated, but that is left open to interpretation by the voter.
Yep. Yep. Further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Natalie, I kind of piggyback on from what Nicole said. Is there a certain, certainty? Do you have, I know that you were saying for the appropriation, that sounds to me like a solid amount that, yes, it will be used. Whereas the state amount, or the state amount, is that the one that may or may not happen, or is there a guarantee? Again, just what Nicole was saying, because like you said, if you are 100% sure that, yes, we will definitely have at least this, then that should be a will. But if there's some, uncertainties, I think that's where the wording needs to be addressed.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment to Article 2? Hearing none, we need to take a vote. All in favor of changing, of adding?
Well, we have an answer there from the school board about what is...
So you do have a question then?
Well, no, that was my question.
Okay.
I think I have an answer.
Sorry.
The $96,000 in increased state aid is from the Keno kindergarten bill. So if you don't know what that is, currently kindergarten students are funded at half the rate of adequacy aid as a first grade student, because full day isn't mandated. The Keno kindergarten bill adds another $1,100 to the state funding for kindergarten students. So the added $96,280 is from the additional state aid based on the projected number of kindergarten students being 61, and I think an additional 10 students that we would bring in from outside of the district, based just because we have full day kindergarten as an option.
So when you say, I'm sorry,
Yes.
so I just want to be clear. So when you say anticipated, it's not that we may or may not get money, it's just the amount may change depending on how many
Depending
students
on
are
enrollment.
enrolled. Okay, so then the second part of the funding, which was the impact fees, that's a guaranteed amount and that's guaranteed monies as well. So then I guess saying that it will be appropriated by, that will is actually correct, and it's just the number that fluctuates. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but is there a way to figure out basically a minimum number that is guaranteed so that we could put that as a will? Because it is confusing, because if you're someone, I want to have kindergarten, but they might read it as we may or may not have money versus the amount that changes. Does that make any sense, what I just said? So I'm just wondering, is there an amount that can be put that it would be, let's say it will be offset by at least X amount of dollars? Would that make sense?
No.
I just want to make sure that people who read the article who are not in this room understand that we are definitely getting some money, and there will be an offset. And I don't want them to think that people who read it might think, well, if we don't get any money, then it's going to cost us too much money, so we're not going to vote for it.
Well, we have the amount in the new warrant. $430,000 is what we anticipate to have to fund the program.
No, I understand that. I guess, and maybe it's just me who's a word junkie, but anticipate, I think for many people could mean, oh, well, we might get zero. So if we get zero, now the town has to fund the $730,000, so I'm not going to vote for kindergarten. Does that make sense what I'm saying? My fear is that some people might read it and say, okay, they're anticipated this, but what if there's budget cuts? What if there's this or that? Then the school will get zero, and my taxes are going to have to fund the totality of the $730,000, and I don't want my taxes going that high, so I'm going to vote no. versus maybe another word that would say, we're definitely getting something. At the very least, we're getting X amount of dollars. Does that make sense?
No, I understand your concern. I think, though, that we are limited by legally, what we can, how we can word our warrant article, but we do always put out information in a mailer before the vote, and it's my personal mission to get, to get the information out there. Thanks.
So,
So I think if we leave the verbiage as is and just do a much better job explaining our intent and that, you know, there is an amount that we are depending on, then I think.
so further discussion on the proposed amendment to change the last section of Article 2 to read, "It is anticipated that the appropriation will be offset by $430,650 to come from state and local revenues." Further discussion.
The only thing I'm just trying to clarify is, the number 700,000 isn't going to be on the warrant article at all, because we've already changed that.
No,
So
the new
money
article,
that we are 100% sure that we're going to get has already been subtracted off the number that's going to be on the warrant article.
Because we have to gross appropriate, we have to raise tax, we have to basically fund the entire amount. We can't subtract any anticipated revenue.
So the impact fees
The
are not...
tax impact does calculate in those revenues. So the number at the bottom of the tax impact, which will be 38 cents because of the impact fees and the increased state aid, that takes everything into consideration, but the warrant article itself has to be the gross appropriation for the full amount.
So the warrant article is going to say 700,
Yes.
not 500, because
Correct.
it's going to. And on there, the only way we're going to get the information to the people is through a separate flyer that's going to break down what money we're 100% sure we...
Yeah, but Robin, it's also going to, like, right now it says 519,000 with the appropriation anticipated 96,000. That'll now say 700 whatever thousand. And that 96,000 got changed to 430,000.
Perfect.
yeah, it's a
Perfect,
total
thank you.
rewording. The numbers change. This is not the article anymore. The article is this one. Stop looking at that one. We've already voted that this is the new article. Okay? Further discussion on the proposed amendment to Article 2. Yes, sir.
Ralph Bohm, 6 Gibson Drive again. Based on what I heard, yeah, we don't want the word anticipated, but leave it as it is, as we amended, so please vote no on the amendment.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment.
Olga McSorley, 3 Perry Court. I apologize, I think I just got confused by that.
I know.
So I'm going to, no offense, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Is it possible, and I don't know if I can make an amendment to the amendment because
Not
we
yet.
voted on
No,
the amendment.
not yet.
Again,
Don't
I'm
do
trying
that.
to wrap my head around this. Is it possible to state will be offset by...
No, no. We're talking about this amendment.
Oh, okay.
Do you agree or don't you agree? That's
No,
what
I
we're
do
going
not
to get
agree
to.
with this amendment. Thank you.
No, here.
I didn't mean to start such a long discussion because this is a typical boilerplate statement in there when you don't really know for sure how much money you're going to get, so you say approximately. And I think the board just made a mistake when they said it will be because it is not a positive statement. That is a positive statement. So I would urge you to vote yes for the amendment to make it.
Which we can then discuss further. And amend further if you like. Okay? Yes. Yes. So the full amendment, the full article reads now, the proposed amended article reads, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $774,242 for the purpose of funding the costs associated with the expansion of the kindergarten program at Griffin Memorial School from half-day to full-day. It is anticipated that the appropriation will be offset by $430,650 to come from state and local revenues. Estimated tax impact, 38 cents. Further discussion on the proposed amendment to Article 2. I'd like to take a vote. Those in favor of changing the article as proposed, please say aye. Aye. Those unopposed. Those opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it. We have an amended Article 2 for further discussion. Okay, we now have an amended Article 2. Further discussion on the article, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Olga McSorley, 3 Perry Court. Okay, I don't have it written down, so I don't know how to propose it, but what I'm asking is if it can be amended to reflect both the amount that is guaranteed, separate from the anticipated revenue.
Can you break up the $430,000 into its components?
Correct. So can we say this will be offset by the X that you know, and at minimum, the Y, which is the Keno money. So by stating we've got this part is guaranteed, we don't know this one, but it's a minimum of X, then the voters will understand that it will be no less than this offset. It will not be zero.
So this much is a slam dunk, and this much is estimated.
Correct.
I think right now we're just kind of like splitting hairs. At the same time, we don't know how much money from the state. Right now, with our student count, that 96,000.
Right.
Our student count goes up by 10, that's going to go up.
Right.
So those numbers can change.
Which is why I'm suggesting
But which numbers
a
can't
minimum.
change? Which numbers do you know?
The 96,000, that
Well, that's what she's proposing.
So will be offset by X amount from the user fees, impact fees, and a minimum of $96,820 from state revenue.
And again, that number could fluctuate too if our student count goes down.
Okay. But that's what I'm saying, like, can we, and I understand it's splitting hairs, but people who are not in this room, you know, like Natalie said, they're going to see the number, and if there's any uncertainty, their default is going to be, what if it's zero?
You had a slide. Can you put the slide up that broke down that 430,000?
I do.
Are the impact fees guaranteed?
Yes.
Is the FY18 fund balance guaranteed or estimated?
It's estimated.
It's estimated. And the increased state aid is,
It's dependent on enrollment.
so it's estimated.
Yes.
So if you want to propose an amendment, you got to propose it. In writing.
In writing.
I think
Right
this
here.
is classic overthinking. This is how they're usually written.
Okay.
And I think if we just explain this information to people when they get the information, beforehand to vote, I think they'll get it, because this is how we word things traditionally.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bohm?
Okay, back to before the amendment. Anyway.
No, we're talking about the amended article.
But back to her presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to clarify that is the state guideline of 1,000 feet, and that was based on when we had state building aid, which no longer exists. I'm not arguing that it's 1,000 feet, but anyway. Also, but it's not law. And it'd be law if we still had state aid, but we don't have any state aid for building. Also, there is, and I agree with the social, and there's actually a bill up in the legislature this year stating that X amount of time for full-day kindergarten be used for social or playtime. So I'm glad that we have that in there, but we need that. We can't be, one of the arguments about full-day kindergarten, we can't subject these young kids to full academic bang,
right.
bang, bang.
No.
So I'm glad that's there.
Can I respond to that?
You may.
I just lost my train of thought. Also, the Keno kindergarten bill, there is an amendment in committee, I believe, right now to bring the adequacy aid for full-day students up to what is equal to, up to 30, the full amount, which is what we collect from grades 1 through 12 students. So we're at least getting $2,900 per full-day student, and it could go up to the full amount. That way, full-day kindergartens are considered full students, I guess. So that amount could increase.
Ma'am.
Hi, Nicole 4085 Page Road. I just wanted to make a comment based on something that was said earlier. So Christina, in your presentation, you had said kind of the breaking point is third grade, where if people haven't caught up, if kids haven't caught up by that point, kind of setting them on a bad thing for the future. But I would say that I don't want to think of children and potentially my future children struggling for that long. If we can set them up from the beginning, why then retroactively put in these services to catch them up? The kids are subjected to all sorts of bullying and things in school where if you're not measuring up, oh, you're stupid, you're this, you're that. Why would we want our children to go through that period of time when they're already so vulnerable, when we can have these services and things put in place that's starting them off right from the beginning? And I can say, as someone who recently moved here, thinking about starting a family, other people coming here, full-day kindergarten would be a huge sell. I think that would be a huge selling point if we really want to get more enrollment and to have more families with young children come in. Thanks.
Further discussion on the amended Article 2. Ma'am.
Janine Engdahl, 43 Tanager Way. I just want to make sure that we're all aware that the point of this article is equal opportunity for an adequate education. So a lot of people say, my kid did half day, they were fine. I did half day, I was fine. My two who had been through kindergarten did half day, they were fine, they were ready in first grade to hit the ground running, they didn't need catch-up time. But that doesn't mean I don't think that kids who need it should get it. My kids also didn't need IEPs. Or haven't yet, I should say, but I mean, my family hasn't needed the special education program, and I still feel that it should be there for the kids who need it, and that does help my family in the larger picture of having a community that is more prosperous and having peers in my kids' classes that have the support they need, and my kids' teachers having the support they need in place to help those kids who do need the special education program or who do need some more service provider time. In the bigger picture, I do benefit, even if maybe I would still choose half day for my kids. Maybe I would. My youngest is in kindergarten now, so I'm not going to get that choice in Litchfield. But it's about having an opportunity for everyone who needs it and giving an equal opportunity for everyone to get what they need.
Ma'am.
Darcy Donahue, 6 Hildreth Drive. I'd just like to say that I appreciate the presentation on really explaining the changes that have taken place in education, and also to point out that there's a lot of discussion about declining enrollment, and that that's a big concern, that people are not coming to the town, they're not bringing their kids here. And that with the expansion of full-day kindergarten, with the expansion of resources and services in our schools in general, it's a great opportunity to really start enticing families to move to this town who can help our town to grow by building on, there's a lot of STEAM and STEM discussions that are taking place, and that by getting early starts on these kids to get the fundamentals and the basics with the monies that are being available in the federal and the town and the district levels for expanding of programs, that there's a great opportunity for us to really build a town that has exceptional education, that will really start to grow our community and start to bring younger families back into the town who may have moved out in past years. We've got quite a divide of those that are not in school and those that are in school, and we don't want to make it an old versus young kind of thing, but my kids are almost out of school, and I find real significant value in continuing to support our school systems, because it's going to keep us from becoming a graying town where we're struggling year upon year for our tax base. So supporting this educational initiative will really help to make our tax base grow and the opportunities for everyone in the community to continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, could you repeat your name again? Donahue, I know that much. What was it for? Darcy Donahue.
Can I just piggyback off that comment?
Sure.
I know you spoke about declining enrollment, and the declining enrollment that we're seeing was in smaller grade levels, smaller cohorts moving up through the elementary school. Those cohorts are heading into the middle school now. And since
and then in the past, was it last year? I can't keep track. Last year, we had to add another second grade classroom and another third grade classroom. Also, I can speak to the enrollment piece, and that full-day kindergarten is a draw because we have currently enrolled, signed up for full-day, for kindergarten, 58 students. Last year at this time, we had about 40 students. We have 52 students in kindergarten right now. So we've already enrolled more students for next year with the proposal of full-day kindergarten. Of those 58 students that are signed up, 3 selected indicated a preference for half-day, and 55 indicated a preference for full-day. So we know the need is there, we know the interest is there, and as enrollment continues to incline, we'll receive more state aid and more funding for our schools.
Further discussion, Mr. Bohm?
Ralph Bohm, 6 Hickman Drive, it's the last time you'll hear from me. I just want to clarify something that was mentioned. When I said third grade testing, that's state testing. Kids in the kindergarten, first grade, second grade are tutored to what they need to bring them up to their level. But it's the state testing that starts in the third grade, and supposedly that's the age when people that were not up to speed in the first grade and second grade, the third grade, everybody needs to be up to speed, and that's what the state testing. Just want to clarify that.
Right, we do routinely assess our kids first grade, kindergarten, first grade and up, so we're on top of it.
Ma'am?
Tiffany McKinnon, 30 Burgess Drive. 30 seconds. This would be a great way for the kids that we see down the road who are having a lot of more educational struggles. And those are the grades right now that you do see some of their smaller numbers. This kindergarten would be a great way to get them to dig in early on when the problems first come up. But for the grades that have already gone on, we can't bring them back to kindergarten and then give them a full day option. So one of the best ways we have for them right now is to keep these smaller teacher-student ratios with these smaller grades and the staff that we have to give them the more time that those students need to catch up and to prosper as well.
Mr. Spencer?
Call the question.
There's no question. Further discussion on the article as amended twice. Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as amended.
Thank you.
Article 3, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $93,313 to hire a full-time special services coordinator to support the Special Services Director and Special Services Department. If approved, this appointment will be included in the operating budget for subsequent years. Estimated tax impact is 10 cents. This is recommended by the School Board 400. It's recommended by the Budget Committee 600.
This should hopefully be really easy. Today, the Special Service Department oversees special education, so that's things like identified students with IEPs and things like that. 504 plans, for those of you not familiar with 504 plans, those are accommodations for students with a disability. So it could be something like hearing, and they need a speaker to help them hear in the classroom. It could even be something like a student with ADHD, and they need accommodations where they have more time to take tests and more time to focus, or maybe they have to sit up front so that the teacher can refocus on them if necessary. English language learners, homeless students, and homeschooled students as well. Each of these different areas that fall under special services are each governed by their own set of laws and regulations, which requires a lot of time and effort to make sure, obviously, we're staying in compliance from a legal standpoint and things like that, which is obviously very time-consuming. Altogether, we have over 430 students served by the Special Services Department, and making sure we have adequate oversight and supervision for the staff members and all the students is critical to make sure that the program is a success. If you look at the history of our special services in Litchfield, we peaked around 2000-2003 because we had a much higher student population back then. At that point, it actually dipped for a while because, as it's been well documented, we were actually unidentifying students, so our enrollment dipped in special services. And then as we corrected that, that population has increased over the last 7 or 8 years, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's plateauing, but we're seeing more consistency. But it's grown to a point where, at this point, roughly a third of our students are receiving services under special education. Of that, we have 19.4% that are actual special education IEP identified students, 12% that are 504, and then another 1% that are either homeless or English language learners. As far as staff that takes to support all these students, you have your paraprofessionals, you have your actual special education teachers, you have your school psychologists, social workers, OTs, language therapists, and things like that, all totaling around 84 staff members. The reason we're asking for this position, and the reason we really need it desperately, is that it's not fair to ask one director to oversee the needs of 430 students and oversee 84 staff members. Not that all 84 roll up directly to the director, but the director is responsible for the programming and the fact that these students are actually getting served adequately. If we hired this coordinator, that person would focus most likely on the high school and our out-of-district placement, which would allow our actual director and our administrators to focus on K-8, which is really where you see a large percent of those needs, and where you really want the early intervention to take place and get them on a pathway where they can be successful in the later grades. And that's all I had.
Further discussion on Article 3. Any questions? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. Article 4. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund established in 2004 with this sum to come from June 30 unreserved fund balance available for transfer on July 1st of this year. The estimated tax impact is 0. This is recommended by the School Board 400. It's recommended by the Budget Committee 600. Mr. Barker.
The slide deck?
Say again?
Oh, that's Michelle. We have the rest of the slides.
On the final. And it's still, I think it's the last slide, except the last slide.
30? There you go. Presentation mode.
This article is pretty basic. Right now, as it stands, we have approximately $154,000 in an account to be utilized in case of any major problem within one of the buildings. And again, keep in mind, these are your buildings, your taxpayers. They're the biggest asset in this town that we have, our 3 schools. So again, we're asking $50,000 from the unassigned balance to be placed into this, which will give us approximately a little bit over $200,000 in case of a major catastrophe or something that's needed.
Discussion, questions on Article 4? Hearing none, you'll find it on the ballot as written. We are at the end.
John, if I can just have a moment.
Sure.
I'd just like to recognize 2 board members that will be leaving us this year. The first is John York, who came back for a 1-year term, and I'd like to thank him for coming back and sitting in. And I'd also like to recognize and thank Derek Barker. Derek is finishing his 2nd term. Derek has been the chair, vice chair, and school board member, and has contributed a great deal over his time also. So I'd like to say thank you, Derek.
Mr. Reed would like to say something as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Phil Reed, 7 Forest Lane. I'd like to make a comment, observation, if you will, on these special education process. I come from a family of 5 sons. As my father used to say, there were 7 in the household with a majority of 1, being my mother. My oldest brother was a genius. And I mean that literally. He was genius IQ. When he was a senior in high school, he and his buddy drove their math teacher crazy by continuing to prove that what she was trying to teach was wrong. The third in line developed cerebral meningitis as a youngster, and for the rest of his life he was what we now call developmentally disabled. I'm talking back in the 1940s. At that time, there was absolutely nothing available to my parents or my family to pay for any special education for him other than the classic snake pit state schools or hospitals Or if you were lucky enough and fortunate enough in your family to have your own funds to be able to send your child to special services, you had that route. But there was no, absolutely no public help. We've come a long, long way. I have the privilege of having, for probably over 15 years, served on the advisory council of a company called Independent Services Network, which is a company that basically what we do, when the public schools pass them on at age 18 or whatever it is, we are facilitated to take over, taking care of providing services and training to those with developmental needs. I am so grateful to see where we have come and what has happened with special ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Before we close, I'd like to remind everyone that the warrant articles discussed today will appear on the ballot as written, or if amended, as amended. There is no next deliberative session. Voting day is on March 13th. I mentioned earlier, it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. here at Campbell High School in the gym. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? Seconded? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Have a great day. Please pass in your pink sheets on your way out. You can leave them on a table, or you can bring them to the stage here, or give them to that nice lady on the way out there. Thank you very much.